Well, Western New York's economy has been hit by the closure of the Canadian border for more than a year. But when it reopens, Congressman Brian Higgins says that expanding rail service to Toronto, that is going to be a very big part of expanding trade. Whether that is realistic, though, is something 2 on your side's Dave McKinley is asking about as we continue to hold people in power accountable.
Even prior to the pandemic, Department of Transportation figures showed that along Amtrak's upstate New York corridor, only 0.5% of all travelers ever took the train. Thus, the $44 million train station in Niagara Falls was like a lot of other stations along the route, pretty much empty, where on an average day, only a total of 90 passengers arrived or departed on the 3 trains per day that came here, a number which has been halved by the pandemic.
Anything that we can do to improve that, I think would be, would justify the investment in building this over the longer term.
The president wants to invest $80 billion more into the subsidized rail system that lost $800 million in its most recent fiscal year. Congressman Higgins would like to see a significant amount invested in train travel between here and Toronto, which hasn't existed for the past year. When it resumes, though, he insists we need to be ready. But much of the improvements he's calling for would have to be made by the Canadian government, whose cooperation would be needed to improve the rails, work out the kinks in a customs clearing process that currently takes 2 hours and makes a trip by train from here to Toronto almost 4 times as long as going by car.
And I was wondering if you could address whether they are on board, no pun intended.
There's a lot more of that conversation going on than people know right now.
Fill us in.
Well, I don't know the detail of it, but they have their ministers, the way their government is structured. We have to convince them, and I don't think it's a hard thing to do.
Coming up next hour, how would he do that? Dave McKinley, Channel 2 News.